Yeah. Well, even if we can put it on the screen, that would be okay too, but people aren't going to see it.
Hi.
Unless we
No,
go.
sorry, I just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah. Yeah, because they asked me if I wanted to do it. They asked me if I wanted to do it. So, yeah.
I'm good. I'm not coughing. No, I'm not. No. I mean, I brought them just in case my cough. Yes, sir. It is now 5:01 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice was given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, would convene a regular meeting on May 17, 2022 at 5 p.m. in the City Commission chambers located on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall Old Federal Building, located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Texas. Pursuant to Section 551.127 Texas Government Code, one or more commissioners or employees may attend this meeting remotely using video conferencing technology. The video and audio feed of the video conferencing equipment can be viewed and heard by the public at the address posted above as the location of the meeting. Members of the public, employees, and the City Commission may join via the WebEx teleconference meeting link that was provided at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. The notice and meeting agenda are posted online at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center, and the members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting hosted through WebEx teleconference can also join from the phone numbers provided on the agenda. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. I'll do a roll call. I show Mayor Mendez is present in person. Commissioner Cowan is present in person. Commissioner Gowan is present in person. Commissioner Galonsky is present in person. Commissioner Tetro is present in person. Commissioner De Los Santos is present in person. And Commissioner Cardenas is present in person. Mayor, we have a quorum, and you may call the meeting to order. Our next item is invocation.
Let's all stand for the prayer and remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance. Father God, we are so blessed, and we are grateful for that. So many blessings here in the city of Brownsville and in the United States of America. When we look around the world at what's happening in so many countries, help us to remember to be grateful for what we have. Lord God, we ask you to lead and guide our voters during this time, to give us leaders that are going to protect our freedoms and protect the principles that our founding fathers sacrificed so much for and that so many of our military sacrificed so much for. Lord, we ask you to lead our elections administrator, Remy Garza, and all of our election workers for a clear and accurate count. And Lord, in this meeting today, we ask you to lead and guide our mayor, our city commissioners, and everyone that's presenting anything for the very best for the city of Brownsville, and help all of us to be supportive in great ideas. We ask all of these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. And let's take a moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has already been spoken. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Our next item is proclamations. Our first proclamation is proclamation recognizing Mothers Against Drunk Driving Power Talk 21 campaign from April 1st through May 31st, 2022 in the city of Brownsville, sponsored by Mayor Mendez and Commissioner Tetro.
Commissioner Tetro,
Yes.
is there anybody here that the person that's going to receive this?
Okay. So this next proclamation was very important to Mayor Mendez and myself because we do have a lot of youth in our community. And it is very important for parents to have this conversation, although sometimes it's a very hard one, with your children about being responsible and having designated drivers and making sure that it's just a hard conversation, but we really need to instill those strong morals to be responsible. It's a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, recognizing Mothers Against Drunk Driving Power Talk 21 campaign from April 1st to May 31st, 2022 in the city of Brownsville. Whereas the city of Brownsville recognizes Power Talk 21 campaign from as of April 1st to May 31st, 2022, and has set forth the importance of parents talking with their teens about alcohol and other drugs to reduce the risks and dangers posed to teens and communities. And whereas high school students who use alcohol and other substances are 5 times more likely to drop out of school or to believe that good grades are not important, and whereas 27% of middle school students try alcohol before graduating from 8th grade, significantly increase the risk that they will develop alcohol problems later in life. And underage drinking contributes to more than 4,300 deaths among people below the age of 21 in the U.S. each year. Hence, the majority of kids say their parents are their primary influence when it comes to decisions about drinking alcohol. And whereas Power Talk 21 started by Mothers Against Drunk Driving in 2011 and is established to encourage parents and caregivers to embrace their important role in influencing America's youth and their decisions about drinking alcohol and using other drugs. And in 2022, MAD encourages parents to use Power Talk 21 as part of the Power of Parents program to create and sustain and prolong conversations about underage drinking and other drugs among middle school and high school students. Whereas all citizens are encouraged to join in the local and national efforts to raise awareness in the importance of parents and teens talking together about alcohol to reduce the risks and dangers posed to teens and communities, and to equip parents to talk with their teens about alcohol. In addition, MAD South Texas Power Talk 21 campaign, held between April 1st and May 31st, will give parents the tools to effectively talk to their children about alcohol and other drugs to protect them. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by the virtue of the authority vested of the Charter of the said city, do hereby recognize the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Power 21 campaign from April 1st through May 31st, 2022 in the city of Brownsville, Texas, and encourage all citizens to join in local and national efforts to raise awareness and reduce the risks and dangers posed to teens and communities, and equip parents with the tools that they need to effectively talk to children and teens about alcohol and other drugs. Done on the 17th day of May, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there anybody here that's going to receive this proclamation online? All right, still a good proclamation and definitely something we want to raise awareness on. So thank you, Commissioner.
Our next proclamation is proclamation recognizing and honoring Brownsville athlete Pedro Antonio Cardenas, sponsored by Commissioner Cowan and Commissioner Gowan.
Sure, this is a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, recognizing and honoring Brownsville athlete Pedro Antonio Cardenas. Whereas Brownsville athlete Pedro Antonio Cardenas, a student at St. Joseph Academy with his cross-country team, won several meets, including individual and team district championships, and a third place in a state meet. At regionals, he broke 3 school records in the 800, 1600, and 200 meters, and qualified to run all 3 events for state. He was one of only 2 Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools runners to accomplish this in the state of Texas, medaling in all 3 events at state, also receiving all district in all 3 events, and all city in all 3 events. In addition, in the Amateur Athletic Union, he finished the season with a national championship in the 3,200-meter relay with a time of 7 minutes, 57 seconds. And whereas he won 3 gold medals in the Brownsville Independent School District Invitational in the 800-meter, 1,600-meter, and 3,200-meter, as well as the Ride the Wave to District, where once again he excelled in the 1,600-meter, 3,200-meter with gold and silver in the 800-meter, or with gold and silver in the 800-meter. In addition, he competed in track and field events at the 2021 Texas Amateur Athletic Federation State Games of Texas held July 29th, 2021 to August 1st, 2021 in Corpus Christi, Texas, in which he qualified to participate in the State Games of America on July 27th, 2022 to July 31st, 2022. These games are a part of the National Congress of State Games. And whereas at St. Joseph Academy, Pedro also received Athlete of the Year for cross-country, track, and soccer, and overall Male Athlete of the Year, with his accomplishments making him the best middle to long-distance runner in St. Joseph Academy history. Furthermore, in 2021, he received the TAF Local Male Athlete of the Year and the Region 2 Male Athlete of the Year. Pedro, the first Brownsvillian ever to receive the TAF State Male Athlete of the Year, was recognized at the February 10th, 2022 Annual Awards and Hall of Fame ceremony in Bryan, Texas, by the Texas Amateur Athletic Federation. And whereas his hard work has brought local, regional, and state attention not only to him, but his high school teammates and community, and his dedication has influenced his teammates to strive to be better athletes, students, and individuals through his example. In addition, through hard work, leadership, and determination, Pedro has made Brownsville very proud. Therefore, know that because of his talent and commitment, he will continue to thrive and succeed in his future. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the charter of said city, and on behalf of all our citizens, do hereby recognize and honor Pedro Antonio Cardenas and encourage the residents of Brownsville to celebrate his accomplishments. Done on this, the 17th day of May, 2022.
Do we have the actual proclamation?
Yes, it's right there.
Pedro, can you come up? Your family come with you?
Yes. I want to thank, my parents, TAFs as well, and the city of Brownsville for this reward, and yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Dad, do you want to come up, hold one, take a picture with your son? Is Missy
Oh. Brian's brand new.
You're gonna have to build a bigger house for all these awards. Congratulations, Pedro.
Our next proclamation is proclamation recognizing National Public Works Week from May 15th to May 21st, 2022 in the city of Brownsville, sponsored by Commissioner Galansky and Commissioner Cowan.
Okay, this is a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, designating May 15th to the 21st of 2022 as National Public Works Week in the city of Brownsville. Excelente. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Brownsville. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are federally mandated first responders and the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation roads and signal system. Solid waste, a landfill and system, storm drainage facilities and ditches, water supply, water treatment, and sewer waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Brownsville to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas all of the employees of the Engineering and Public Works Department of the City of Brownsville work unselfishly through rain or shine, day or night, through storms, hurricanes, cold freeze, and the pandemic to ensure all residents, businesses, and emergency operations of the City of Brownsville were able to move across the city as needed. And whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the charter of said city and on behalf of all our citizens, do hereby designate the week, May 15th to the 21st, 2022, as National Public Works Week. Hence, we hereby urge all citizens of Brownsville to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in celebration to pay tribute to our public works professionals, first responders, engineers, managers, operators, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protect our national, state, and city health, safety, and the quality of life. Done at Brownsville, Texas, the 17th day of May 2022. And to add to that, tomorrow there will be a public celebration honoring all public works employees at the Brownsville Event Center. I don't remember the time. I think it's from 9 till 2:30? 9 till 2? So anyone is welcome to attend. Thank you for all you do, especially now that we're going into working season.
Since we have a small crowd, I'm going to invite them all up. Yeah, we couldn't fit all 200 of us here, but come on up, guys. Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor, and the whole board. You know, I am Armando Gutierrez, the Director of Public Works Engineering, and with me I have, on my side here, I have my two assistants, Maribel Guerrero, Assistant Director, and Doro Garcia, our City Engineer. It is with great honor that I received this proclamation on behalf of all the men and women of Public Works, Engineering Public Works. The men and women of Engineering Public Works are one of the hardest working people, and those from Brownsville are the best. This group of individuals work every day including holidays, weekends, days and nights. We have worked through the pandemic, through hurricanes, through the freeze, and any emergency that may come our way. We are essential employees, and the department is an essential department. We are the people that keep our streets open, our traffic signals operational, our landfills going day in and day out, and our city clean and mowed at all times. Rain or shine, hot or cold, day or night, they will be here for us. Dodo, you want to add something?
Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to thank you all for recognizing Public Works Week, and I'd also thank you for honoring our Public Works staff. They're really incredible, and they go above and beyond and serving their duties. In addition to that, I'd like to thank all the other departments that help us function in the city and do everything that we do for you all and our citizens. Thank you.
Mayor and City Commissioners, it is my sincere honor and our pleasure to invite you tomorrow to our Public Works Day celebrations to be held at the Brownsville Event Center from 9 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is a chance to hang out with us. We're going to have really cool, heavy machinery to show off. We're going to have hot dogs and music, and just a great opportunity to meet the amazing men and women who work Public Works for the City of Brownsville. So come join us. We'd be pleased to see you, and we welcome your participation.
Thank you very much.
Well, y'all are coming up here. Thank you for everything you do. I don't think the public really truly appreciates everything it is that y'all do. I think all of us hear at least once or twice a week about something that needs to be repaired, but what they don't hear about is how quickly you respond and how great you are about accommodating the public on all your work. So thank you all very much for what you do.
Our next item is our public comment period. Our first public comment form was received from Lawrence Fernandez.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing me to speak before you. If you notice a very extraordinarious two compendiums on your desk there, Mayor, those are the body of the two grants that my foundation is wanting to extend to the city. It's a milestone in every regard. There are two projects that are so dear to all of us and to me, one of which is each a $1,000 grant. The first one is the repair of the funerary monuments in the cemetery that have lain broken for so many decades. And so there's a whole proposal in there on how we can do that, and we can bring that cemetery back into the recognition that it deserves, and dignity. The second one is a Montezuma Cypress incubator project that is out at it's the La Posada Community Garden. And this incubator is a nursery, and it will serve the purpose of actually growing the seedlings that we have from this very, very unusual and unique and fine trees that we have there in the park area there. And then we can disseminate them throughout the Brownsville area and, of course, the Rio Grande Valley area, and it can be a profit center for the Wellness Coalition. So, Mayor, if you sprinkle your holy water on it, and I think that Ms. McGowan is here, and she'll be the end receiver of them, let me know, keep me in the loop so far as what legal has to say about that, but I'm here to serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, we had two other public comment forms received from Ana Trejo and Maria Hernandez, and I believe they're both with the Southmost Choice Neighborhood Plan ambassador, so I think they were maybe wanting to speak at the same time.
Whatever you like, either separately at the same time, it's fine. Just introduce yourself, please.
Muy buenas tardes.
Ah.
Sí. Ok. Como quieran. Buenas tardes, alcalde Méndez y comisionados. Mi nombre es María Hernández y soy parte de las embajadoras comunitarias del proyecto de planificación de Choice Neighborhood para el proyecto del área internacional South Most. Mis compañeras y yo estamos aquí para invitarles a la junta comunitaria que se llevará a cabo el miércoles 25 de mayo de 4:30 a 7:30 en el Parque González. El objetivo de esta junta es aprender sobre las prioridades y desafíos de las familias que residen en esta área. Les damos las gracias a los comisionados de la ciudad y de Housing por el apoyo y gracias al señor Rubén Herrera por estar aquí representando la mesa directiva de Housing Authority. Gracias por estar aquí.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos por estar aquí con nosotros.
Gracias.
Nos vemos esta próxima semana. Gracias.
Our next item is work sessions. Item 1, Capital Improvements Advisory Committee update, multimodal transportation.
Mayor, City Commissioners, good afternoon. Joel Garza, Multimodal Transportation Director. During the last meeting, I asked to look at the members that make up the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. In your packet, we included the list of the members and the ordinance itself. And so in the slides included one, the purpose of the committee, obviously, is to give recommendations, either for land assumptions, fees. It provides and monitors the implementation of the capital improvements plan. And at the end of the day, these recommendations will come back to this board to make that final decision. In your presentation, we do have the members that were appointed at that time. The folks in red are the two individuals that we could not get a hold of. The rest have all confirmed and are willing to continue if this commission chooses so. So I will leave it at that. I can take any questions, any concerns, and ask, I guess, for direction from the commission.
On those two positions, no specialties required for those two seats? I noticed the others have specialties listed next to them.
Correct, no. It can be any, as long as they fall within the city limits.
I would suggest deferring to Commissioner Cowan and Tetra on their appointments. And then on the others, I think since they're appointed by commissioners that are not on the board, well, Commissioner Cowan has one as well. But there's some here that are pretty old. I mean, Commissioner Cisneros unfortunately isn't here with us anymore. But I think it's probably good to reevaluate the list and appoint somebody that we feel is relevant to the committee at this point. And I know that's going to come up later, but unless somebody, I mean, whatever the commission's thoughts are as well, but those are mine.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to evaluate, only because while I love to have District 3 represented, we absolutely don't want to have a monopoly on a board like this. Want to ensure every district's represented.
Okay, we did add an item under board appointments, if you choose so, if you have already someone in mind. If not, we can come back. We'll do a 30-day notice and we can advertise and make sure folks apply that are interested. So I don't know what the wishes of the commission are.
Joel, I did have a question. I saw that the qualifications specifically state real estate development. Why is that? Because capital improvements doesn't always necessarily involve, like a realtor, for example, may not, unless they're involved in development, which a lot of them are, obviously, or a lot of them know price or cost per square foot. But I'm just curious if there's a reason.
This comes from the state of Texas. Their Texas Government Code, Chapter 395, specifically requires that 40% of this committee represents either a retail developer or a real estate.
The one on the right.
Do I need to change my appointment? I mean, mine's probably the newest. Looks like it. Okay, I'm happy with mine.
No,
No.
I mean, that's certainly deferred to your appointment.
Real estate, y commercial, residential, o lo que sea? Or,
Only 3 members have to be building, real estate, or developer.
okay.
And so we can email, we can put this out, advertise folks that want to apply, and then us internally will have to identify, okay, where they fall in.
Okay, well, I know that there's an item coming up later on this, so those commissioners that already have somebody here, you can just reaffirm it, and then those others, if you're ready, we can suggest those. Okay? Council, does that work?
Can I appoint someone who's a business partner? No. But they're in real estate development.
If they're in real estate development, you can appoint them.
I can't.
But you're saying a business partner of yours?
Yeah, let me think where. I mean, they own property with us. Yeah,
Well, let me look into that, and then
Okay.
I'll give you a more definitive answer.
okay.
But Mayor, you had a question?
Oh, well, later when it comes up, when the item comes up, I guess just give us some guidance on how exactly to do it, since there's members already, whether we would be removing them and.
Oh,
appointing them.
absolutely, of course, yeah. Well, I think it's,
It's
yeah,
the
Board of
last
Corporations
item.
one. yeah.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is consent agenda items 1 through 9.
We have any motions?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Our next item is public hearings. Item 1, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-009 to rezone from residential estate to residential single-family for Lot 19, Block 1, Villas Reforma subdivision, Cameron County, Texas, located near the intersection of Old Spanish Trail and West Ruben Torres Boulevard, Brownsville, Texas, 78520, as shown in Exhibit A, District 4, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. So this is a request to upzone from residential estate to residential single-family R1. The proposed use is a single-family development. The property is fronting Ruben M. Torres Boulevard on the west side of the expressway. So this is the aerial map. This is showing the 200-foot buffer area. There were 18 mailouts, 0 written opposition. And so as you can see along the corridor, there is some residential estate, but what predominates in the area is residential single-family R1. To the south, there is also some residential transition, and to the east, there's residential suburban. This is a street view of the property. And another aerial view. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z does recommend the approval to rezone from residential estate to residential single-family R1.
Do you have any questions or comments from the commission? This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? Okay,
I'll move to close the public hearing.
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have a motion on the item?
I'll move to approve the request.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 2, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-011 to rezone from residential estate to light industrial for an approximate 6.308 acres out of 8.750 acres out of Lot 12, Block 111, El Jardín, re-subdivision in Share 29, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at the intersection of North Minnesota Avenue and Coffee Port Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So this request is to upzone from residential estate to light industrial LI. The purpose is to establish a freight terminal. It will consist of an office and a warehouse. And the property is fronting North Minnesota Avenue and Coffee Port Road. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 15 mailouts and 0 written opposition. This is a zoning map. What predominates in the area is residential zoning. There's some residential transition to the south. There's residential estate along the Minnesota corridor. And there is some light industrial to the east of North Minnesota Avenue. This is an aerial view, corner of Coffee Port in Minnesota. Street view. The request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. However, P&Z did recommend approval to rezone from residential estate to light industrial LI.
So it's not consistent with the plan, but P&Z still recommends it? Why?
Yes, staff actually was recommending opposition. P&Z did recommend approval. The reason why staff was recommending the opposition was because there's a lot of residential uses surrounding the area. And we do not see it as an area or an intersection where a high-traffic facility or heavy traffic facility would be well located. However, like I said, P&Z did approve.
Were you able to voice your concerns to P&Z?
Yes, we always state our reasons as to why we recommend denial.
Is there any renderings on what's proposed?
No.
No? It just you said freight terminal?
Yes.
What is that use that's there right now? The area that it'll surround? What type of business is that?
It seems to be a mechanic shop.
You're talking about the existing
Yeah,
use right there?
Yeah. the
Inside
little
that
cutout
U.
in there.
Right, that little
Existing
carve out?
business.
Yes, where the property notches or
Right.
wraps around.
Okay, because you say it seems to be a mechanic shop.
Well, the predominant use is mechanic shop, but there's other vehicles laying around, so it might be leaning also towards vehicle storage and salvage yard.
Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Do we have any motions on the item?
I'm going to move to deny because I don't see the point of having a comprehensive plan if we're not going to follow it.
We have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor of the denial?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the requested action is denied. Thank you.
Item 3, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-012S to rezone from residential suburban and commercial corridor to regional center with a specific use permit to allow a used car lot for an approximate 0.60 acres of land out of the east 10 acres of Block 16, Chicago Gardens subdivision, Share 28, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 5585 Boca Chica Boulevard, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So this case is a combination of both a rezoning and a specific use permit. The proposed use is a car lot. In order to establish this use, zoning of residential, of regional center is required. The current zoning of the property is commercial corridor and residential suburban R2. And this property is fronting Boca Chica Boulevard directly across the airport. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 5 mail lots and 0 written opposition. This is the zoning map. There is light industrial to the south because of the airport, but what predominates in the area is residential zoning, a variety of residential zoning, single family, multifamily, and residential estate, and there's commercial corridor along Boca Chica Boulevard. This is a bird's eye view. As you can see, there's an existing car lot next door that is also sort of going into the salvage yard realm of the use. And so this is a street view. Again, the request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z did recommend approval with staff's proposed conditions to rezone the property from residential suburban / commercial corridor to regional center with a specific use permit. And however, staff did recommend denial. However, we did mention that if P&Z wanted to recommend approval, to at least add these conditions to the specific use permit to address common complaints that we have for these types of establishments.
So were those conditions approved then?
They made the motion to approve with the proposed conditions.
Okay. My question, when I looked at the street view, it looks like that is already the use, based on that. So it's the next, I guess the adjacent property is already doing that. And it looks like this property, if it's the one that you're showing here with the gravel, it looks like it's kind of cleared out and kind of headed that way already.
Right. They have gone and put in or improved the site. We don't have any permits on record, but regardless, this does exist on the property.
Okay.
My issue with this area is that the traffic is very high, and you have people stopping and pulling in, pulling out to see cars and things like that. It's very dangerous.
Yes, and just to point out as well, the improvements that are here are post-UDC.
Are what?
addressed?
Post-UDC. So
Oh,
after the
post-UDC.
adoption of the UDC.
Can you pull up the conditions again, please? Okay, thank you.
Yes, and these are conditions that in previous rezonings for car lots, we have put on there or recommended to alleviate those common complaints that we have. And so, for example, having always the organized parking of inventory, adequate space for traffic flow, additional vegetation buffers and screening, all storage within the property, no storage outside within the right-of-way, as we sometimes see along the frontage road close to International. Unloading of inventory all within the property, no blocking traffic or lanes in order to unload the incoming inventory, privacy for residential or commercial uses, proposing masonry walls, and having all work, if any, that's related to mechanic or body work done indoors or within an enclosed area.
Martin, I have a couple of questions on these. Starting with the privacy for abutting residential or commercial uses, and I could understand that very plainly if there was residential next door or a different use next door. But it seems like there's a drainage ditch on one side and car businesses everywhere else around it. So my first question would be why the need for privacy, and the second would be why we're recommending masonry specifically.
Well, the code says that masonry is required whenever there's going to be unloading of inventory. And so it's required in this type of business because, as mentioned, the inventory comes in on large vehicles or on semi-trucks, and they unload within the property. And also
In addition, the UDC does prohibit the use of cyclone or hurricane fences in the commercial corridor districts. So this fence that was installed without a permit after the UDC would either need to be brought into conformance or removed
But basically, we're saying they'll have to build brick walls.
along the frontage, yes.
Well, not along the frontage, but on the sides. Now, here we understand, for example, the drain ditch on one side, where there isn't an abutting use that requires privacy, it does allow for an alternative. It doesn't necessarily have to be a masonry wall.
Okay.
Per se.
That was my concern when I saw masonry. I thought it had to be specifically.
Yeah, no.
Okay. My other question was, and you'll go back to the conditions, storage of inventory within the property. And I get where you guys are going with this, and I agree with you 100%. But my question, and maybe this is for council also, when we're saying storage, are we limiting ourselves there? Because, and I'm thinking devil's advocate outside the box, I own this car lot and I park it right at the edge of the road, so I'm blocking oncoming traffic and the views. I'm not storing it, I'm just displaying it for a couple of hours. Then it's gonna be moved back into the lot for storage.
Well, the intent of saying all inventory within, or being stored within the property is to avoid that comment that you mentioned.
But does storage hurt us there?
No, Commissioner, I think if we got to that point and we're arguing it, it's a matter of fact. It's a factual issue, and I think depending on the circumstances for each given lot, I think that's what the court or the reviewing body would consider. I don't think that there's a legal issue with that.
So we don't see a need to include vehicle display and restricting where they can display vehicles into any of the restrictions?
And also to point out, it would be right of way, anywhere from the curb and gutter up to the property line. It's not considered their property, so technically it shouldn't even be in use in the first place.
The conditions to the specific use permit are recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission. The City Commission can expand those or restrict those, however the City Commission desires.
Thank you.
Martin, and the petitioners requesting the rezoning, they're different owners than the ones who, next door? Or-
Yes, it's completely different owners.
I have a question on the specific use permit. Is this only for a car lot, or can they use it for a salvage yard as well?
No, it's only for a car lot.
Okay, so-
It would be limited just to that particular use.
Limited to that.
Yes.
Just want to make clear. Thank you.
I feel like,
Commissioner, your microphone.
and as long as they take care of the drainage ditch, we should be good to them, because that's a very imperative drainage ditch to the neighborhoods right behind that area. But the car lots that have been in that area have been very respectful. And they have taken good care of that area. So that part doesn't necessarily bother me. They don't park on the street necessarily and do things like that. I don't know who the owner is. I don't know anything like that. But I feel as long as the restrictions are in place and there are businesses like that next door, and it doesn't affect anybody that lives next door, and it is along Boca Chica, which is mostly a business corridor in that area, and it is in front of the airport, which is not really residential. I don't have a problem with it. It's not something that bothers me as much as the residential area further down away from the airport. So I personally do not have a problem with it. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't know how anybody else from the commission feels. But I do feel like it does need mason walls. And I do feel like we do need to put some strong structure in place so that it doesn't get out of hand, and it does have to look good, and there does have to be vegetation, and we do have to have high standards. And I don't want to see cars being worked on, and I don't want to see car parts in the drainage ditch. And it has to be very well maintained. And I do expect that our inspectors and health department to be on top of it and making sure that all of the rules in place are being checked on. But that's all that, the input that I have. But I don't know how the rest of the commission feels.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? Yes, sir. Come on up. Please introduce yourself and.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Diego Fernandez. I am the property owner. If you let me, I have a proposal with me. I don't know if you want to see it. Can we? Or? Thank you.
¿Estás de acuerdo con las condiciones que te habían propuesto?
100%.
Okay.
De hecho, las traigo por escrito. Sé que tenemos reglas que seguir. Estoy en la mejor disposición de seguirlas. Si hay alguna regla adicional que se tenga que poner hoy, estoy bien con ello y estoy dispuesto a seguirla.
Okay, muy bien, gracias. Entonces, el presupuesto que nos estás presentando es lo mismo que.
No, ese es un plan, la vista de cómo el negocio, la apariencia que va a dar el negocio.
Okay.
En la parte de abajo está lo que Planning and Zoning me pidió. Estoy dispuesto a seguirlo. Aparte de que, como les comentaba, si hay algo más que tenga que seguir, lo podría hacer.
¿Cuántos vehículos van a tener?
El espacio es más o menos para unos 30 vehículos.
¿Cuántos?
Un promedio de 30.
Y comentas que no vas a hacer, que no van a reparar vehículos ahí.
No, para nada. Nada que tenga que ver con reparación de vehículos, de ningún tipo, de ninguna clase, sería ahí. Nada más es venta de vehículos usados.
¿Algo más?
Gracias.
Gracias.
I just want to point out, to clarify, the amount of vehicles is also determined by the UDC, almost as if it were a parking calculation.
Okay.
What is that?
For this parcel, what would it be based on the UDC?
I honestly don't know it off the top of my head, but the calculation is based on the office space plus the gross area of the lot, and that determines how much inventory they can have within the property.
Thank you.
Because another thing that I have issue with is that we have a lot of these car lots that are overloaded. And I don't, well.
In addition to the number of vehicles that is limited, the standard site development requirements are in place. So the collegiate parking lot you saw will have to be upgraded to a fully paved parking area. The cyclone fence will have to be removed. That doesn't meet the code. And then they will have to meet the specific use permit requirements as well.
Okay. This is is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this? Okay, do you have a motion to close public public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have a motion on the item?
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 4, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-013-S to rezone from commercial corridor to regional center with a specific use permit to allow a used car lot for 0.399 acres of land out of 3.869 acres out of a certain 20.75 acre tract in Tract 22 of Share 19, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, located at 2700 East Price Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So very similar situation. It's a rezone with a specific use permit to allow a used car lot. The current zoning is commercial corridor. It will be transferring to regional center. And the property is fronting East Price Road, almost directly across Hannah High School. This is the 200-foot buffer map. There were 14 mailouts and 0 written opposition. This is a zoning map. What predominates in the area is commercial corridor and some residential zoning that surrounds it, including single-family, suburban, and transition. Another bird's eye view. And so this is a street view. It's important to point out that this property has existed as a car wash for many years. And it transitioned into being a used car lot. It has been operating as such for the past 6 years. They have been receiving citations because we don't have a CO. They've been operating without a CO. And now they want to come into compliance because their license is about to expire with the state. And so the request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z did recommend approval with staff's proposed conditions to rezone from commercial corridor to regional center, RC, with a specific use permit.
Just out of curiosity, and this isn't going to affect my decision one way or the other, those citations that have been issued, have they been paying those fines? Have they been fighting them? And how has our municipal court disposed of those? Do we know?
Actually, I had the same question.
We just know that they've been receiving the citations because they themselves told us. Now, I do not know to what extent or what process they are at with the court or with the prosecutor. But it's the main reason behind for trying to comply is, like I said, the expiration of their license.
What license is that?
I guess it's their dealer's license that's issued by the state.
So they've actually had a dealer's license, even though it's not in compliance at the property?
It's tied apparently to another business.
Okay.
Council, do I have to abstain because it's a car wash?
I'm sorry?
Do I have to abstain because it's a car wash?
Only if you have or a family member has interest in that specific car wash.
Not that specific one, but a car
Then
wash?
you're fine.
Okay. A very close car wash.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item?
I've just got a general statement. Let's not make it too hard to open businesses in Brownsville. I mean, it's a commercial corridor. I mean, it's Price Road. The other one was Boca Chica. The other one was Coffee Port and Minnesota. I mean, it's all commercial. Let's not make it hard. Anyway.
I'll just say though, it's in front of Hannah, and have you ever seen the kids crossing the street also on Hannah? It's high, when you're, to me, that's a big concern. And so now we're rewarding them because they're gonna come into compliance, but this is just
Yeah,
this
but
is
no
my
one's
view.
no one's gonna put a house there. I mean, if, it's like, what are you gonna put there if you don't put a car lot? A car lot doesn't have any more traffic than, the car wash, probably less traffic than a car wash, actually, because I mean, car wash, you're coming through there all the time. A car lot, you're just coming when you're looking to buy a car. It's fewer, it's a lower traffic flow than what was there. So, I mean, that's my opinion.
Since there's nobody else that wishes to speak on this, can we have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we have a motion on the item.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm gonna object.
I'm against as well. So 5-2, I'm sorry, 4-2, motion passes. Thank you.
Item 5, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-014 to rezone from commercial corridor to regional center for Lot 2, Block 1, SSP Circle K subdivision, Cameron County, Texas, located on Old Port Isabel Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So this is an upzone to establish a pawn shop. The property is going from commercial corridor to regional center. The property is fronting Old Port Isabel Road. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 23 mail-outs and 0 written opposition. This is a zoning map. What predominates in the area is commercial corridor and to the surroundings. There is residential transition and residential single family. This is a bird's eye view of the property. Directly across this property, there is an existing pawn shop, which is actually owned by the same property owner. And as you can see here, directly across is Amigo Pawn Shop. Now, the UDC does have a land spacing requirement for pawn shops. It's a half a mile between one establishment and the other. The property owner proposes to rezone this property to establish his new pawn shop and then close the existing one down. The request is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z did recommend approval to request a rezone from commercial corridor to regional center.
And the reason it's not consistent is because of the pawn shop spacing requirement?
And also because the zoning within the vicinity is capped out at commercial corridor. Throwing in a a regional center zoning would allow uses of higher intensity. If for some reason the pawn shop is never built, they could build something of higher intensity that's allowed in regional center and not allowed in commercial corridor.
Mayor, if I could add, if we go back 2 years to the adoption of the Unified Development Code, during that adoption process, during the public hearings, we heard from the public that they were concerned about the number of used car lots in the city, as well as the condition of many of the used car lots, as well as the number of pawn shops and plasma centers. And so as we built the Unified Development Code, we built in restrictive standards. One, we restricted car lots, used car lots, and pawn shops to the regional corridor district, whereas regional corridor is where you have 2 major intersections of an arterial road and a highway. Think where the shopping centers are. And so those uses were placed at those locations, which makes it somewhat difficult to get over that hurdle to find locations for used car lots and pawn shops with the mile spacing requirement. So in addition to the SUP requirement for the used car lots, it was a very difficult hurdle to overcome to try to control those 2 land uses. So in this case, Now we're using regional corridor zoning in our commercial corridor zone, so we're making it easier to open these land uses that we had hoped to try to have some control over. And so that's the basis of the recommendation today by the staff, was that we didn't feel that this was an appropriate location for pawn shop use. But since there's one already there and it's the same owner and they're going to replace the existing one, it's not like we're adding to the total number of pawn shops in the area. Just a little background on how we got to this point of limiting those two uses.
And
So
because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're going to close one, okay.
Correct.
And so, why is the pawn shop not okay in a commercial as opposed to regional? I guess I didn't realize that, because I think of it as a business, so I think of it as commercial.
That was my question too.
It is okay, it's just we have a spacing requirement because they tend to cluster, and then you have quite a few in specific locations that they're trying to target. So this will space them out throughout the city, so we just don't have.
No, I understand that, but
Okay.
why does it have to change its zoning?
Because a pawn shop requires a higher zoning requirement rather than your basic general retail that is allowed by commercial corridor.
Right.
It's just I guess, the change or the type of business model that it is similar to, for example, blood banks, or not blood banks, but plasma centers. It's just the business model difference rather than just a retail.
My question would be related to that. You said if the pawn shop was not successful, there could be something else that comes in that could be, and I forget the term you used, but give me an example of something that might be undesirable that could come in there under the regional center zoning.
Well, a regional center zoning is geared more towards, let's say, an industrial, commercial use. A regional center would be, let's say, a step, or halfway, you would be halfway there for a car lot, for example. All they would need to do is get a specific use permit after the zoning has been approved. So that would be one particular use that would not be suitable for the area.
And I would just say, we might need to take a look at it then as a city, because if there are things that we would find acceptable in an area that are regional corridor, regional center, but others that we wouldn't, then why is a pawn shop in that same category? That might not be the right place for it, or that might not be the right place for the others, if it's gonna be getting us near industrial.
Can do that.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Have a motion to close?
So moved.
We have a motion to close. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 6, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-015 to rezone from residential estate to residential suburban for an approximate 3 acres out of blocks 68 and 73 El Jardín subdivision, shares 19 and 27, Espiritu Santo, Cameron County, Texas. Located at 1245 Fruitdale Drive, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So this request is to go from residential estate to residential suburban. The purpose of it is to establish a duplex / townhome subdivision. The property is fronting Fruitdale Drive. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 29 mailouts and 0 written opposition. This is a zoning map. What predominates in the area is residential. Split among, between residential would be residential estate and residential single family. It's important to point out that residential estate is intended for larger lots. And here's a bird's eye of the property. This is the street view of the property. The applicant did mention that they were going to demolish everything and just create a new subdivision. However, the request was not consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z did recommend denial, but the applicant did appeal on May 6th, earlier this month.
Do we have any proposed renderings or any sort of density idea on the duplex subdivision?
No, however, the amount is going to be approximately 14 duplex lots.
14? So it'd be 28 units then?
28.
28. Any proposed site plan or no?
No.
No. Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that's wishing to speak on this item? Do you have any questions or comments from the commission?
I don't have enough information to make a judgment like that for 20 duplexes in the middle of Fruitdale.
I couldn't hear you, Commissioner, I'm sorry.
I don't, they didn't provide enough information to make a judgment like that to completely change the terrain of a neighborhood like that. So, I'll make the motion to close public hearing.
We have a motion to close public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, do we have any motions on the item?
I'll make the motion to deny.
Second.
We have a motion to deny in a second, Commissioner Gillespie? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, application is denied. Thank you.
Item 7, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-902 to rezone from residential transition to commercial corridor for lots 2 to 6, Block M, Price Road Village subdivision, Cameron County, Texas, located near the intersection of East Price Road and Padre Island Highway, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
This will be an upzone from residential transition to commercial corridor. The proposed use is a commercial business in general, mainly neighborhood services. In this area, there are some medical offices. This property is fronting East Price Road. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 18 mailouts and 0 written opposition. There's a mixture of zoning, but mainly what predominates is residential. There's some single-family zoning, as well as residential transition, which allows multifamily, and there's commercial corridor along the Price Road frontage. This is the bird's eye view, very close to the corner of South Padre Island Highway. And this is a street view. There's a lot of professional offices. There's also some restaurants and general retail within the area. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z did recommend approval of the request to rezone from residential transition to commercial corridor.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have any motions on the item?
I'll move to approve the
I'll
request.
second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 8, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-904 to rezone from residential estate to residential transition for lots 1, 2, and 4, Tenorio subdivision, Cameron County, Texas, located on Medford Avenue, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
This will be an upzone from residential estate to residential transition. The proposed use is apartments. This property is fronting Medford Avenue. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 20 mailouts and 0 written opposition. What predominates in the area is residential estate and regional center to the north. There is also some residential suburban zoning to the east. This is a street view of the property. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z did recommend approval to rezone from residential estate to residential transition.
Questions or comments? Is there anybody here on this item? We have a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. And any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 9, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-905 to rezone from light industrial to heavy industrial for an approximate 3.42 acres out of 20.06 acres out of 20.38 acres, blocks 42, 43, and 44, Brownwell Tract Addition, Cameron County, Texas, located at 6665 Padre Island Highway, Brownsville, Texas, 78521, as shown in Exhibit A, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
This request is to upzone the property from light industrial to heavy industrial. The proposed use is a tire recycling center. The property is fronting Padre Island Highway. This is the 200-foot buffer map. There were 14 mailouts and 0 written opposition. Padre Island Highway is divided into residential zoning to the south and light industrial to the north. There is also some commercial corridor zoning along the frontage. And out of the entire property, which is 20 acres, the applicant will only be rezoning 3 acres for the proposed use. This is a street view. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. P&Z did recommend approval to rezone from light industrial to heavy industrial.
Okay, do we have any questions or concerns from the commission? No. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this item? We have a motion to close?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Will this in any way affect any of the neighborhoods around? There won't be any type of debris or anything?
Speaking to the applicants, it's just going to, or the developers, it will be consisting only of indoor processing of the tires. Everything is just going to be shredding. Apparently, there's not going to be any, let's say, burning or anything, any process that might cause hazardous fumes.
It'll be shredding, and it'll alleviate the problem that Brownsville has with used tires.
Can you get closer to the microphone, sir, please?
It will all involve shredding, and it will alleviate the problem that Brownsville has with used tires. We will be able to recycle them and sell the byproducts.
That's wonderful. Will it be enclosed or is it going to be?
It's going to be enclosed, yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I'll make sure and drop them off.
I'll second the motion to close public hearing.
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, do we have a motion
I'll
on the
move to
item?
approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next item is items for individual consideration. Item 1, consideration and action for purchase and delivery of support services and system upgrades from NetSync Network Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $209,660.68 as budgeted. Enterprise Applications Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm James McCoy with Enterprise Applications. Enterprise Applications Department is seeking to renew support services and system upgrades to the city's network infrastructure. The infrastructure services that will be renewed include Cisco network equipment, VMware, and Nimble storage. Enterprise Applications recommends approval to issue the purchase order to NetSync Network Solutions in the amount quoted. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
We finally see you in front of the camera, James.
Right.
Thank you. You've gone corporate on us. With a
Yeah,
tie and everything.
I got a tie and everything.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2, consideration and action to approve an amendment to the interlocal agreement with Cameron County Regional Authority, CCRMA, to provide the engineering and design local match in the amount of $105,872 for the Dana Road Bridge Project, Multimodal Department.
Before we go any further, I have a conflict of interest, so I'll step out.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner.
Mayor, City Commissioners, 2 years ago, we partnered with the CCRMA, the Cameron County Regional Mobility Authority, to help us out with the Dana Road project. Now we're amending that agreement to include the bridge that crosses the Resaca. And so they would be doing most of the work. We're providing the match for the design. I do have to note that the contract in your packet is incorrect. We did print out the correct one and left it in your desk. The only change, the one in your packet stated a $405,000. We already paid the initial $300,000, and so the difference is what is being awarded today, which is the 105. So I do want to make that note.
So the prior action had already been approved then?
Yes,
For 300, okay. And the reason for the increase, is it an increase?
It's additional work. We had a project with TxDOT to do the Dana Road Bridge. Because the RMA is already doing the roadway component, it would make it easier for the same local entity to do both projects at the same time, which makes sense and cost savings. So staff recommends approval.
And the additional funding, was that in the budget?
This would be part of the fiscal year 23 budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Does somebody want to go get Commissioner Golotsky, or?
I'll get
You
it.
know where she went?
I can go ahead and read the item, Mayor.
Sure.
Item 3, consideration and action to approve resolution number 2022-029 to authorize the application and submission of fiscal year 2022 low or no emission and buses and bus facilities grant in the amount of $11,133,289 with a required local match of 20%. Multimodal Transportation Department.
Good evening. I'm Jenny Garcia, the Deputy Director for Multimodal Transportation. The Multimodal Transportation Department is seeking to apply for 2 grants for electric vehicles through the FTA, Federal Transit Administration. It is the low
low and no emission program and the bus and bus facilities program. We are looking to purchase 10 vehicles, 10 electric vehicles, and seeking the local match of $1.6 million. Any questions?
Are these 10 buses, or what kind of vehicles are they? Really?
10 vehicles.
And they're fully electric?
Fully electric. This is for the buses and the infrastructure, and this is an example of what it would look like.
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 4, consideration and action on the annual 5-year general fund financial forecast update, Financial Services Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'll be in the Finance Department today. We need to add 10% for buses, by the way. So, yeah, part of the purpose of the general fund forecast is to look downrange and take on the bigger picture issues that typically are not always attainable through a one-year budget, but the one-year budget is critical in the sense that it's always going to be one more step in the right direction as we utilize strategies that can help us further the city's financial strength and goals through all things finance. So next slide, please. These are the meetings we had with the Budget Committee that was formed back in 2018. That Budget Committee is composed of the Mayor, Commissioners Cowan and Galansky. So you all are the ambassadors and the ones that spend quality time with us as a staff to cover a lot of ground. But this year, I would say the 5-year plan was pretty light. But y'all did give us 3 hours of your time, which we appreciate. I also spent some more time with the commissioners covering some of the high points. But basically, these are the areas that we covered during those 3 meetings. They are in the packet for review. Next slide. Next slide. These are the highlights for the first meeting. We just reminded the committee on what is the purpose, what is the general methodology and approach that we use for the 5-year planning process. It's only a tool. Nothing that gets approved as part of the 5-year plan is actually, how can I say, mandated. The state does not require that we do 5-year planning. When you do a policy statement, that doesn't mean that it's set in stone forever. It's your local strategy that we want to just codify so that we can have a working understanding as we go into the budget of what you all have already given us some general direction on. And then when we get into the budget, we're just fine-tuning the line items and getting the actual revenues, using the prior year numbers, and just kind of continuing on with the bigger picture plan. Next slide, please. Here's a great example of all that we've covered over 3 years. This is the 3rd year of our 5-year plan, but just some highlights here. When I got here, I remember the CIP was a little bit tight. Y'all may recall the airport project. There was a challenge getting that match for the FAA portion, and there was 4A and 4B monies that were utilized. One of those tactics that we implemented back in 2019 was the debt restructure. That's really fueled a lot of the capital improvement programs in our now 5-year retooled CIP. But it's just an example to show you all that you guys have given us the time of day for us to explain to you concepts and techniques that are important, but are best to be discussed in a 5-year planning type setting. Also, what we've done is we've been trying to set expectation and looking at our needs from a multi-year perspective. We realize that where we're coming from is a place where we have had a lot of needs to meet, but in doing so, we've been studying those service level assessments over a multi-year time frame. And this goes to show also where we've brought certain things to your attention that were pain points and that were long-term liabilities and challenges that needed to be addressed, but you're not going to address it in a one-year budget. But you guys have supported some of the recommendations we've made about how to better structure general fund to protect it, because that is the central clearinghouse for the majority of what we do as a city. So whether it's enterprise caps and limiting the dependence on outside resources like bridge and landfill and the PUB transfer that are good to have, but not to be overly relied upon. We've done a lot of cleanup, and through the years, I would say we've basically rebuilt the city's financial framework. and it's been for good in many ways. One area that was a central theme this year that we've not spent a lot of time discussing, but I think now is a good time to do that, is sales tax. Sales tax as a revenue source has its own nuances, and we broke it down a lot this year, and I'll talk a bit more about that. Next slide, please. Also, we've been assessing, we've done needs assessments in some of our core infrastructure areas, whether it be streets or facilities, and one thing that we've talked a lot about is we have some deferred maintenance items. And same thing, we're not going to tackle all the deferred maintenance in 1 year. It didn't happen overnight, won't get fixed overnight. But at least we can now understand it and then craft a plan toward making headway. From a service level standpoint, we have still also things that departments request that we need to address. And the number that we have is around $3 million of unmet service level needs, whether that be staffing or other items that departments have requested. That's been the number where we've kind of stayed at. But nonetheless, before we go and just dedicate money toward this, we've been finding other efficiencies through technology and things of that sort, other innovative ways of funding our fleet, things like that. But as funding allows, there is some need to grow into service level challenges that we have throughout the organization. Next slide, please. Here are some of y'all's policy statements. These are some strategies that we've implemented. I won't touch all of these, but it just goes to show that every year there's been some tweaking here and there. During the pandemic, some of these strategies paid off because we did experience what can happen when the bridge traffic is closed. We did experience other things with regard to technology where we did not have basics such as devices, and we had to shift to a hybrid environment, and we had some of our boards that didn't have the equipment to meet virtually and things like that, because we weren't funding a technology replacement plan and things of that sort. But nonetheless, we've made headway, and these are some of those examples. We also shifted funding for the pavilion, for the event center, and trying to be more sustainable and trying to keep those services as self-sufficient as we can so that we're not overburdening general fund with some of those subsidies. Next slide. And here are some things that we need some guidance from you all on, and some are recommendations. So the compensation study that's underway, this is the second one in around 8 years. So it's important that the commission give us guidance on a compensation philosophy. We can bring all kinds of studies, but it's important that you all direct us on how competitive do we want to be, and then how do we want to approach us getting to whatever philosophy you all set. And that way, when we do analyses, we kind of compare that to the philosophy, and then we have a better way of managing expectations and then determining how we best fund y'all's vision. OPEB, we have made structural changes to the plan, but there's still a need to fund it on a recurring basis. What we discussed with the committee is recommending that any surplus from the medical fund, the self-insurance fund, that we use that surplus to fund the liability that we're still going to have to fund toward OPEB. So we intend to memorialize that through a policy statement. And if we continue to see the performance that we have seen these last 2 years, we could be allocating potentially $1 million or so annually toward OPEB. So that's a good thing, because that doesn't have to come from general fund. It'll just come from efficiently operating our self-funded insurance plan. And then there's a sales tax one, and we'll talk about that next. Next slide. April 11th, we focused on sales tax. Next slide. This is a big deal in terms of what we discussed, because sales tax, it's a typical kind of secondary revenue source for cities. We've taken time to study it more, because if you all look at the monthly updates, and in the current budget, we funded $6.8 million of cash of surplus sales tax. Historically, the city has been very conservative, which is a good thing. We only budget 2.5% every year of sales tax toward recurring costs. But one of the things that we wanted to shine light on is we're at the point of where our general fund will have sales tax as the leading revenue source in about a year, if our estimates track along. The challenge with that is sales tax is very volatile. So if we attach a volatile revenue source to fixed recurring costs. In the environment that we're in now, where the state will not allow us to just very easily increase the property tax rate, we could see challenges with us not being able to flex and pivot as sales tax ebbs and flows over time. So what we're recommending is that we hold a line and that we keep sales tax at the current level, which is 30%. Property taxes is 31%. Over time, we can look at how property taxes is doing. If we're successful with our economic development efforts, bless you, we can always look at that, because if property tax begins to shoot up and do very well, then we can always revisit that. But for now, at the pace of 2.5% even, we will see ourselves just having to manage a more volatile general fund, and that's kind of tricky. Also, we do have a lot of deferred maintenance that we could focus on. So if we hold the line and if we're disciplined with sales tax, having surplus is not a bad thing, because for us, it just means we don't have to issue debt for maintenance that, you know, could have, would have, should have been funded over the years. And also, it just kind of goes back toward our root cause. We just need to focus on growth management and building up our tax base and pursuing that economic development strategy that we've been talking about. Next slide. It also has an implications on our capital improvement program. The money that we have through the debt restructuring is all committed. We have about 2 years left of $10 million in 23, 24. You know, as we grow, as our tax base grows, we'll definitely have more capacity, but debt financing is finite. You can't issue debt forever. It has to be within our financial capacity. And then other factors to consider is our tax rate and things like that. For a city our size, our tax rate is relatively high, so we'd want to keep that at bay, and if anything, you know, reduce over time. So at this point, what we're saying here too is we're basically in a cash-funded environment once we exhaust the capacity that we have. By policy, we have a 5% of taxable value as our best practice. That is a kind of a GFOA recommended number. We're at 2.5% of taxable value, so we would want to preserve some capacity, because there are a lot of assets that we have to maintain, so we wouldn't want to have to be at the max of our debt limit and then have a fire station or some critical, you know, life safety item that we need to fund. So that also has implications on our capital improvement program, because again, we'll have to pay as we go once that capacity is exhausted. Next slide. Another thing we talked about is broadband. Broadband, as that gets deployed and the take rate reaches what the projected number is for some of these revenues to shake out, there would be some potential revenue here. Or what we recommend, however, is like the other transfers that we've capped into general fund, we would recommend dedicating that toward infrastructure maintenance. There's plenty of stuff that we need to maintain over time, so if we could set that aside, put it toward the IMF fund, that would go a long way toward funding trails, alleys, sidewalks, all these public assets that we're also responsible beyond just your drainage and streets. Next slide. And then the bridge fund, we just talked about the bridge and landfill relative to the Harlingen contract. We've begun to service Harlingen since December, and there are revenues coming in, which is a good thing. During the budget process, we'll bring you all a proposal for how we intend to fund some of the equipment needs that we need out there. Some staffing needs are also needed, and that has started. But the more tricky part is the heavy equipment. What do we buy cash? What do we lease? What do we finance? So we'll bring you all a scenario of how we best recommend to meet that. Next slide. Next slide. Here we talked about the compensation plan. The compensation plan, we should have those numbers by the end of this month. And what we talked about is it's been a challenge to fund compensation over time. We have some options. It's not going to be easy, but one of the options is on the next slide. Actually, no, we left it out. Go back, please. So just, we want to make it short. Basically, vacancies. Vacancies is something that we've kept flat post-pandemic. There's around 1.7 million that we could potentially dedicate and earmark toward the salary study. The consultant did provide some numbers to work with, which is 5% of payroll to start. and then another 5% based on market adjustments and COLAs that other cities may implement in the next fiscal year. So that's around $2.5 million. That 1.7 would go a long way toward that number. And then we have to wait on the revenues. We have to wait on how property taxes does. We do have other commitments to fund, like the SAFER grant. We have to prepare for the loss of some of that PUB money. And then workman's compensation numbers are showing an increase as well. So it's not going to be easy, but this goes to show that even if we use the vacancy money, we've been operating at this level for about 10 years plus. So those employees that we have chosen to stay with us. They're doing the work. They've been here through the pandemic. So if we can keep that revenue and just invest it in the employees that we have, it wouldn't be a terrible thing. We would not eliminate positions. We would just unfund them or defund them, and then, fund them back as we can. But that's something that we could do in the short term to show our employees how we do value them and how we intend to fund them as best we can. Next slide, please. I'm wrapping up here. The Health Plan Subcommittee has been meeting. We have one meeting left that we want to have with them, but this goes back to bringing forth some additional recommendations to best manage our health plan. As we see savings there, we'll fund OPEB better. Next slide. And then land use. We are that committee that Joel talked about. We're working with PUB and the planning department. They'll look at the transportation network and the stormwater system. What we talked a lot about here is that these impact fees are a great growth management tool and also a way to help deflect the costs from falling entirely on the community versus some of it on the developers. We have a lot of mobility improvements, traffic management improvements. The impact fees are designed to be another revenue source toward that, but we'll get direction from the commission sometime late this year or maybe mid next year. But it's another option, it's another tool, and we need to just stay focused on how we best maximize our land use, because it's another way of meeting our capital improvement needs. Next slide. Yeah, and we talked about it relative to being sustainable and then making the most of our residential tax base. We showed the committee 3 years history from 2020 through half of fiscal 2022. We're still about 75-25 or 80-20 residential to commercial development. We need to do as much as we can to be dense, to redevelop downtown, to not hurt ourselves more, so to speak, by leapfrogging and not building incrementally and cohesively as we grow north. Essentially, just our property tax base is a reflection of how well we maximize the performance of our land. Land is finite. We're going to eventually build out. Every city builds out, and that's when you really feel the pinch, when there's no more way to go, when you have to grow up, when you have to redevelop. Those are the issues that we're trying to focus on, so that even if we have a primarily residential tax base, we can still implement policies and practices that help us make the most of our land use. I think that's it. Yep, we'll be happy to answer any questions, and thanks for your time. Staff does recommend acknowledgement and approval of the 5-year plan, and then we'll bring back those policy statements during the budget.
Motion to acknowledge.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Our next item is board appointments. Item 1, consideration and action to approve resolution number 2022-032 to appoint, reappoint, and/or remove members to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, Multimodal Transportation Department.
Mayor, City Commissioners, again, Joel Garza, Multimodal Transportation Director. We have the list in front of you. I guess I can hear your recommendations, your wishes on appointing, reappointing, or removing any of these members.
And Mayor, Commissioners, I believe the question was presented in the workshop portion. What would be the method in appointing? I think at this point, you would want to first identify those that you want to reappoint. And then if there's less than a quorum, maybe you consider tabling it. Less than a quorum appointed for this committee.
Okay. Well, we have Commissioner Gowan, who has Juan Pequeño. We have Commissioner Cowan, who has Guillermo Rico. And we have Commissioner Tetro with Chloe Dotson. Are all of y'all okay with continuing those appointments?
Keep in mind, the ones in red, they couldn't reach.
They can't get in touch
I
with
haven't
their
actually spoken to Mr. Pequeño. Will you guys contact him and see if he's willing to, or have you already contacted?
So we reached out to all of them. The ones in red, we could not contact as of yesterday, and we
Okay,
tried
so
twice.
you did speak with Mr. Pequeño and he's okay? Okay.
Yes.
Can I see the list? There's no list.
We have no list, and so that's the direction. If we want to formulate some list, we'll go back, we'll post it on the city website to make sure that, let the public know that, hey, we're interested to apply for this board, and then we can come back next month with the applicants.
Go ahead and post my position.
And then,
Because it's important that people that want to serve on these boards have the opportunity to serve.
I agree with mine, and I'll try to get in touch with Memo.
There's no requirement that they live within the city limits, is there?
not that I'm aware of, no.
I mean, I can make my appointment today, or I can
Sure.
wait. I sent a text, but he hasn't responded. But I'll appoint Frank Rispoli in place of Joe de la Fuente. I'll take over Commissioner Longoria's person.
So the council, would the motion then be to remove Mr. De La Fuente and appoint this other individual?
And is this in replace for Guillermo Rico?
Sorry, to replace Joe de la Fuente, since he was Commissioner Longoria's appointment, and he was my predecessor.
So I would actually make that the first motion to replace Joe De La Fuente with
Frank Rispoli,
Frank Rispoli.
Rispoli. And if you want, I can give you his phone number. I'll write it down because I don't know
And-
that he wants it
And-
public
and
record.
so let's get that motion first.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. I'll go ahead and make a motion to appoint Bob Torres in place of Fabian de la Garza, who I don't know, but they're both realtors, I believe. Oh. Well, yeah, I'll just,
So at this point, if there's no removals, I would just do a blanket slate of those that you recommend to serve on the board.
That was a removal also.
That was? Okay.
I'll move to,
well, hold on.
Finish, Trace.
Bob's a realtor, so
bad.
I'll go ahead then and make it,
Armando Ibarra.
yeah, Armando Ibarra. And I'll appoint Bob Torres.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
do I need to make a motion to retain Mr. Pequeño in his position?
No. If there are any others that want to keep their appointments, I would just keep that in one motion to retain or to reappoint yours and anybody else's. I believe Commissioner Cowan voiced that he wanted to keep,
Guillermo Rico.
Well, I wanted to go out and seek applicants. In the meantime, I'm going to try to get a hold of him, see if he still wants to serve.
Okay.
So mine is the only one that we know is willing to continue serving.
So at this point, we only have 3.
I mean, I can fill up another one if you want, like, if someone wants, there's an extra
So
slot.
to my point previously, I think if we have 4, because the point of appointing people right now would be to have them function as a board. They need 4 to function. But if we only have 3 appointments, then my recommendation would be we just actually table this until we're able to come back and everybody be able to slate theirs.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, some have already been appointed, but those we still have a quorum because technically the others haven't been removed, so they're still members at this
There's,
point.
yeah.
If they're able to show up, correct.
We haven't called a meeting yet. We just notified them twice. They responded. The other two did not.
Okay,
So at this point, sorry, Commissioner Gowan, you would make a motion to reappoint yours.
Correct. Done.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
And Joel, I think Commissioner Cisneros was District 3 Commissioner, and I see that appointee's been there since 2007. If he's one of the ones y'all reach and is willing, I'm not going to say I want to replace him, but I'd like to talk to him before we confirm him.
What's the criteria for an ETJ rep? Just,
I would need to check the ordinance, but I think they do live within the ETJ.
okay.
Somebody that lives at Starbase.
Oh, and so real estate, is that a realtor or what's the difference between real estate and developer? Because Frank's a developer too, or if you want to call it
The
that.
ordinance and the law says that real estate, development, or business industries. It's vague to interpretation.
So on mine, there's no category. What would my category be?
So we only need 3 that represent one of these individual industries. The other ones can just be a city resident,
Oh, so just somebody,
whoever you.
God bless you. Okay.
If there's no other appointments at this time, we'll bring it back at the next meeting to fill out the rest.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What?
If there's no other appointments or removals, we can bring this back at the next meeting to fill the rest of the slots.
Yes, I do have Commissioner Tetra and Commissioner Cowan will post to make sure we get new applicants.
I believe Commissioner Del Santos.
Who are or what's the total number of people on this board, including city employees, including appointees,
Should be
everybody?
7. The ordinance
Be
says
7. Okay, because I see there's 8 on the screen in front of us.
There were 8 appointed, but the ordinance specifies 7, 1 for each member.
And is one city staff or not?
Yes, technically, the ex-official is Rick Vasquez, the planning and zoning director. Yes. That's why he's not on.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Our next item is executive session, and I'll read the items. Item 1, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, including a legal briefing related to proposed letters of intent with HMI Utilities LLC, Lit Communities Broadband Incorporated, and BTX Fiber LLC, and other legal matters related to municipal ownership and operation of a broadband network. Item 2, closed session pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorney, Section 551.072, discussion related to the possible exchange, lease, valuation, or sale of real property generally located near I-169, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, and 551.087, economic development negotiations related to project corridor.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. We'll
It is now
recess to executive session.
6:54 PM, and the City Commission of the City of Brownsville is convening into executive session. Okay, Mayor, it is 7:43 PM, and we're reconvening into open session. Our next item is possible action on any items as discussed in executive session. Item 1 is consideration and action, if any, related to the approval of letters of intent with HMI Utilities LLC, Lit Communities Broadband Incorporated, and/or BTX Fiber LLC, City Manager's Office.
I'll make a motion to approve the letters of intent with HMI Utilities LLC, Lit Communities Broadband Inc., and/or BTX Fiber LLC, and proceed with execution of P3, including construction contract and IRU agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn?
Next
Second.
item, Lori, we did have an item 2. There's not going to be any action on that?
Don't recommend any action. Okay, Mayor.
Okay, so you don't want me to read it?
No, that's fine. No action
Okay.
on item 2. And we did have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Okay, it is now 7:44 PM. There being no further business to come before the commission of duly made motion, the meeting has adjourned.